I'm standing next to my very young passion fruit vine. This is a purple variety, and I will be hand pollinating some of these flowers. Now, naturally, passion fruit doesn't need our help. Passion fruit does very fine on its own. It's a fast growing, vigorous vine. It gives you tons of fruit every year. So why go through the process of hand pollinating flowers when you really don't have to? Well, there are a couple of reasons why you may find yourself needing to hand pollinate or wanting to hand pollinate the flowers. And two reasons that come to mind right away would be like my reason. We have a very young vine, and this passion fruit is just now setting its first flowers. We're also in the very beginning of spring. So I actually don't have a lot of pollinators in my garden yet. Also, I'm just now establishing a very new food garden for the very first time in this house, because we did have a food garden in our previous house, but that house was sold and all of the plants and trees stayed behind. So the word hasn't gotten out to all of our pollinators, like the bees and the butterflies and the wasps, that were here. So in this situation, it would be beneficial for me to actually hand pollinate my flowers to increase the chances of them fruiting. Another reason why you may find yourself having to or wanting to hand pollinate your flowers is if you're growing a cross-pollinating variety. So a lot of the purple passion fruit varieties are actually self-fertile, which means that they will accept their own pollen to set fruit. So generally, it's one flower on the vine accepting the pollen from another flower to set their fruit. Whereas cross-pollinating varieties, like a lot of the yellow varieties and even the giant passion fruits, they require pollen from a completely separate variety or a separate vine to actually form fruit. So that would be another situation where you'd find yourself probably wanting to hand pollinate, at least in the beginning while you're first getting your vines established. A lot of the flowers that are already on here have already opened. I've already hand pollinated them, but I recorded it for you so that you can see the process. These here are one of the male parts of the flowers called the anthers, and these are called the stigmas. These are the female parts. Now what we need to do is grab one of the anthers from another flower, because the anthers are what holds the pollen. This is one of my flowers that recently bloomed and just now started closing back up. So I'm going to go ahead and grab one of the anthers from this flower here. And when you flip it over, you can see all of the pollen that it's holding. Now I'm just going to rub the pollen on all three of the stigmas. And it's as easy as that. You'll just repeat this process with the other flowers that have bloomed. All right, so now that you've pollinated your flowers, or maybe you have a whole bunch of pollinators, so you're not worried about hand pollinating, but you are curious to know if it was successfully done or if it's successfully been pollinated, within a few days, the flower is going to start to close back up and start to wither. And that little round ovary in the middle of the flower will start to swell and get bigger. And over the course of a few days to a couple of weeks, you're going to notice that it starts to kind of pop out of the flower as it continues to get bigger. That right there tells you that it was done successfully. So let's say that you have a vine. Let's say that you acquired it or you purchased it and you don't know what variety you have. You don't know whether it's cross-pollinating or self-fertile. There are a couple of ways to determine that yourself, and it's really just by sitting back and observing. If you're not able to find out with whoever you acquired that vine from what variety it is, you can just wait until it actually starts flowering, and you'll either hand pollinate the flowers yourself or you'll let the pollinators do what they have to do. Wait until the flower starts to close back up and then just start observing the little ovary in the middle. If the ovary does not get fat and continue to grow, or let's say the flower drops but there's no fruit to be seen, or let's say that it actually does start getting a little bit fatter but then it drops prematurely before it actually fully ripens on the vine, you might be growing a cross-pollinating variety. And if that's the case, there are a couple of things that come to mind on what you should do. And obviously the first one is to get yourself another passion fruit variety. If you have the space to grow one, and go ahead and just grow a different variety. And then once that flowers, you can kind of cross them that way, at least in the beginning. Or there are times where you can actually find vendors online selling their pollen. I know that's happened with me. I've looked for dragon fruit pollen online before because I was growing dragon fruit that was self-sterile and it required pollen from a different variety to set its fruit. So same thing with these. You can find people online selling their pollen. It really just depends on the season and the vendor, or you can look for a local nursery in your area that also sells passion fruit and see if there's any way that they can help you out. And of course, if you know somebody that's growing passion fruit, you can ask them for some flowers or at least one flower to take care of what you have to take care of. Now, I hope the information in this video was helpful to you. I'm going to link a couple of passion fruit videos in the description box that I filmed previously when I was first growing passion fruit in our old house. You can check those out if you're interested. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to watch more videos on organic gardening. I'll see you next time.